think there's a very real chance that in the immediate future, like within the next year to 3 years, that the industry's growth starts to slow down, maybe even starts to stop, maybe even starts to roll back a little bit. I'm not saying it's all going to go away. I'm not like doom and glooming. I'm saying strictly financially, from a tactical perspective, it is a bad business decision to bother to do security past whatever it costs you to make the gold iPhone at that point. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know if that's indicative of the whole rest of the industry, but I think that's the times we live in. We as an industry should kind of decide how we collectively react to that.
Welcome to the Hacker's Cache, the show that decrypts the secrets of cybersecurity one byte at a time. I'm your host, Kyser Clark, and today I have Carl Vincent, aka Vyrus, who is a senior security pro with deep time in offensive security, fraud and threat intelligence, and adversarial work. Carl's known for straight talk on what red teaming really is, how to speak to the threat model, and for recent research into the silver bullet ecosystem that fraud actors lean on. So, Carl, thank you so much for stopping in on Hackers Cash and being here with me. Go ahead and introduce yourself and unpack your experience for the audience.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Carl. I spent a couple decades breaking stuff, and breaking into stuff. And yeah, I mean, I did somewhere in there. I did a short stint at a shop doing like mergers and acquisitions diligence security, for like Fortune 10 type, like super big stuff. That was wild. That was man. For a while I was doing pen testing, and then I got into like full spectrum kind of like physical stuff, and I was like, oh, this is probably the shadiest job I'll ever do. And then I did that job, and I was like, oh, it gets way shadier. I had no idea. Recently, I've been doing a lot of like blue team stuff, like a lot of like adversary engagement and building out threat detection programs, and you know, working for like AI companies and finance companies and fintech and that sort of thing. But yeah,
So, can you give the audience the TLDR of that silver bullet talk that you gave?
yeah. So silver bullet is I mean, I honestly I hesitate to call it malware, but it's basically like evil burp, right? It's a actually the comparison I like a lot better is it's kind of like evil postman. So it's basically a launcher. It's a scriptable launcher for HTTPS requests. Like Silverbullet is the closed sourced, designed for fraud version of the open source version, which is OpenBullet. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's designed for people to figure out ways to do web level REST HTTP style abuse, usually in the form of like credential brute forcing or account theft or like whole lot of card testing, like payment card testing, that sort of thing. And it's modular, so it's got plugins. You can use it. It's got like people write plugins and sell plugins for bypassing captchas and getting around CSRF tokens, and the bad guys all sell their scripts, right? So the attacks are usually codified in these scripts, and the scripts can be Turing complete, and so they can be backdoored. And criminals don't trust each other. Surprise, surprise. So they often will sell them or trade them for anywhere between $1 to like $20 for the really good ones. And then the fraud actors will, in an effort to check them to find out if they're clean, will post them on Virus Total. And that's great for blue teams because that means if you know how to search for them, Virus Total turns into a non-stop threat intelligence feed for this one variant of software. And the bonus round is that a lot of times, for the nature of the attack, there are URL artifacts encoded into the script so that it's attacking the right place. And that means that as a defender, you can basically take the query pieces that will find silver bullet scripts and then add the shortest chunk of an artifact for your domain for the organization that you're trying to defend. And now you've got this feed for just you. So anything that shows up, this is somebody attacking you specifically.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So, that talk was over a year ago. Is it still relevant today?
Absolutely. It gets more relevant basically by the day. I said this during the talk. At scale, cybercrime, for the most part, unless we're talking about nation states or crypto smash and grabs, is mostly not about popping shells anymore. It's mostly about getting user level access to a platform or set of platforms and then leveraging those platforms to do whatever the shady is. And in 2025, everything is a SaaS platform now. Everything's third party SaaS. So a lot of it is, as a fraud or threat actor, I just want to get into your account enough to use the website like you and then do the bad and peace out with the account or the money or whatever it is. A lot of it is not custom exploits and malware and popping shells and lateral migration. I mean, those things still matter because they still happen, but they've narrowed a lot, at least in my experience, to like ransomware actors or very high tradecraft individuals who are looking for long tier persistence, which tends to veer towards the nationally backed threat actor game because everybody else, they don't want to stay in your system for 6 months. That's hard. They just want your account so they can either sell it or use it.
If threat actors are more in that camp of where they just want to get in your account, get what they want, and then get out, and they don't want that long term persistence, would you say that these types of threat actors, like who are they targeting? Are they targeting the big companies, or are they targeting kind of like the individual users?
Everybody. Everybody. I've seen all the big media producers, like any app you've ever seen on a Roku or an Apple TV, all of those get hit because those accounts get sold and traded. And, a lot of times people are sharing them with their brother and their in laws and their whatever anyway. And it's all kind of a gray area on, how much one platform enforces login, party versus another. So there's a lot of that, and also some services are legal in some areas and not legal in others, and VPNs are a thing. So honestly, anything you can buy online, is fair game. I see all the major cloud providers getting into cloud accounts, like those get hit a lot. A lot of payment card. I'd say the significant vast majority, to the point where I would almost say all of the carding attacks and credential stuffing based like payment attacks and stuff like that I've seen happens on Silver Bullet. It's the way, there's all the card testing, card checking, card caching, like a lot of that stuff. It all happens on Silver Bullet.
Nice. Yeah. Well, thanks for unpacking all that. All right, Carl, let's go ahead and move on to the security Mad Libs. So, for those who are new to the show, Carl will have 40 seconds to answer 5 security Mad Libs. If he answers all 5 Mad Libs in 40 seconds, he will get a bonus 6 Mad Lib that's unrelated to cybersecurity. So, Carl, are you ready?
As ready as I'm gonna get.
Your time will start as soon as I stop asking the first question. Here we go. Carl, my biggest professional flex is
Antivirus.
the nerdiest sticker on my laptop is
An old German conference that doesn't exist anymore.
the one tool I refuse to uninstall is
Sublime.
my dream setup includes
Six monitors.
you can't call yourself a hacker if you've never
Uh, Done a salsa shot.
uh, uh, have I done a social shot? I probably have at one
It's
point in my
very
life, but
specific. It's a very specific reference.
I don't. Well, let's go ahead and dive into it. What is that? What is that reference? Am I allowed to know? Is that
Oh yeah,
inside? What is
yeah.
that?
So back in the day, in the previous era of DEF CONs, the security goons used to walk around and interact with attendees in various ways, and one of those ways is there was a dude who used to make this stuff called habanero rum, and it was exactly what it sounds like. It was extremely high proof alcohol infused with capsaicin by mixing it with organically grown, extremely spicy peppers, strained, and people would walk around and. I mean, the irony of it is that the person who did it was actually very passionate about the peppers part of it. So if like the part of it that you could taste was actually quite good, but you would only taste it for like a hot second, and then it was just liquid pain. Um, and for a few years, so they would strain the stuff out, but then you'd have the leftover stroma from the peppers, right? And then you have to gut that, and then you have so you have the highly filtered, you know, it's almost transparent. You have the first run, but it's got the gunk left over, and then you have like the actual pepper chunks, like the stroma. So at one point, it was for yield, like there's still alcohol in the other bits, so you don't want to throw all that out. And so they had anyway, groups of people would walk around with all three of these bottles. You'd have the super clear stuff, you'd have the pepper chunks, and you'd have the kind of goop that was part of the extract. And through social interactions, every once in a while, they would offer whatever what's called a salsa shot. And a salsa shot was all three in equal parts into a shot glass, and you would drink this kind of chunky, boozy pepper mash. And the rule was you couldn't drink anything for 60 seconds. So you do it in 60 seconds. And then for I think it was either the next minute or the next 5 minutes or something like that, the only thing you could drink is a warm PBR. And then after that, you could drink whatever you want. And it turned into this kind of like shenanigans situation. um, yeah, many, many a memory of salsa shots gone horribly, horribly awry. I mean, in fact, man, I have a buddy he works in IT. He's actually not a security person, but he works in IT. I think he works for like a school district. I brought him to DEF CON one year. Great dude, known him my whole life, most of my adult life. Uh, and I brought him to DEF CON, and it was during the period when I was still running Open Capture the Flag, which is a game that me and a crazy group of people called DC949 invented years ago. That now is like a huge deal. Um, the open version, because there's DEF CON Capture the Flag, and then there's like our version, and both are still around. Anyway, so we brought him to DEF CON one year. He drove out, helped us drive a lot of the gear. It was a big help. But we got there early, and this was before DEF CON had a Thursday, right? So we showed up on Thursday because we showed up to set up, but DEF CON didn't have like a Thursday yet. And so the salsa shot goons were like walking around like hunting for victims, and so they find this guy. So he's been at DEF CON, like DEF CON hasn't started yet, but he's been physically in the contest room, so in physically present in DEF CON total in his life at this point, maybe a whole 5 minutes, right? We've like parked and gotten out of the car because it's like the first place we went for Vegas because we had to unload all the gear. And so these random people he doesn't know, but obviously know us, are like, "Oh, you're a noob. Okay, we got to give you a salsa shot." So the first anything that he has at DEF CON is a salsa shot. Um, and he downs it, and immediately it kicks in, and like maybe 20 seconds into it, money's changing hands. People are just waiting on him to pop. They're getting the trash can ready. Like, here we go. And he didn't. He held it in. He was all good. And then he did the warm PBR, and then he sat down for about 5 minutes and kind of held himself together, and then started to like recoup. But oh man, it was a huge flex. It was a huge flex. He rides that to this day. He's like, hey, remember that time those guys like ambushed me and tried to make me do that salsa shot, and they thought I was gonna yak, and I didn't. Ha, 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 ha. Like, he still flexes on it.
That's great. Yeah. So this past DEF CON was my first one. I didn't see any of that going on.
Yeah, it's a totally
But that
different.
sounds
That stuff is total like it all happens
yeah,
offside on other stuff now. Like,
yeah,
it's totally different world, man. It's all very professional and you know.
interesting. Man, it makes me wish I would enter the field a little sooner. I
Eh, people say
man,
that, and like the nostalgia is real. I'm not gonna lie, but it's just the world's different now, though. Like things change appropriate with the context of what they gotta be. I'm like the hijinks still happen. They're more spread out. A lot of it has a different flavor. Like the stuff that happens at B sides is different than the stuff that happens at DEF CON. There's way more conferences now. That's another thing, right? Like, I mean, a lot of this stuff that used to go down at DEF CON, and people tell old stories, and it's, oh, I wish I went back then. It's like, well, yeah, but back then there was like 3 cons like in the world. Now there's like 300, right? So like, no, you go to your local con and you do that, right? It's fine.
nice. Yeah, very valid points. And yeah, yeah, I can understand that for sure. So let's go ahead and get into your bonus question. So this is unrelated to cybersecurity. And you
Mm,
can relate it if you want to. If you can somehow relate them together, feel free to do that. You can
sure.
explain your answer as much or as little as you want to. You can even dodge a question entirely. So here it is.
All right.
Bonus bonus Mad Lib. My final words in a video game would probably be blank.
Ooh. GG?
Spoken like a true gamer.
I mean, man, like dad life. So I haven't played a video game in like 2 years, but I mean, video games got me into security in the first place. That was my path. Um, and I think the last video game I played regularly, like with any kind of cadence, I think was actually StarCraft, which is hilarious because I'm terrible at StarCraft. But uh, I had a friend for many years who got really good at it for an American. uh, and he ended up kind of getting me into it because we would play, and then I kept playing for a while. So yeah, I think that's the last thing.
Nice.
Mm.
Yeah, same here. That's what got me into where I'm into now because like I was a huge gamer. I made that natural progression from console to PC gamer, and then once I became a PC gamer, I always wanted to like how can I get more performance. I started like understanding how the computer components worked,
Yeah,
and always trying to buy the best of the best so I can run my games with the best graphics, the most FPS, so I can get pwned online.
yeah,
or
absolutely.
and yeah, and that's what got me in like that's what got me into computer building. But then I realized like oh, I'm pretty good at this troubleshooting stuff because like when you build your own computers, like troubleshooting is just a natural part of that. And I
Yeah.
like one of um one of my coworkers, I used to work in an oil refinery. He's like, dude, why don't you go to college for this? Like, why don't you just like, do this for work or something? I was like, I don't think I can. Like, I'm not like this is literally what I thought. I was like, man, I'm not good at math. I don't like college and what a horrible mentality. But like I feel like that was like my guidance counselors and like all adults lying to me my whole life. Like, oh, you have to be good at math to be work with computers, and that's just not the case. And
No, I dig
I
that.
just
I dig
I
that
wish like
100%.
the
Uh-huh.
teachers and the guidance counselors and all the parents, that I had in my life wouldn't have said that because I probably would have joined the field a lot sooner because I started in security. I was at age 24, so
Yeah.
which isn't too late, but better late than never. But it would have been nice just to get a little earlier of a start, I suppose.
Definitely never late than never. One of the craziest pieces of research I've ever done. Well, not craziest, but like probably some of the most professional research I've ever done. I did with someone who, at the time, had only been in the field for a year, and the job they had before they were at the same consulting shop with me was bagging groceries. Like they literally went from bagging groceries to they were their own kind of nerd, and they were reading um, RFPs and genuinely finding logical flaws in by just reading the RFPs and kind of visualizing things in their mind. And then they ended up completely randomly kind of throwing some dice and you know living life and ended up at a consulting firm. And then we ended up at like a big shop together and did some research on QUIC that we ended up presenting at Black Hat after that. And she was amazing. She was super smart, and it was a great example of like, yeah, better late than never. you know, only been doing this a year. She is a Black Hat. We're like slinging top level stuff.
That's great. Like that, you gotta have a wicked brain for that. I feel like just reading RFCs, like without having being any experience, I feel like literally like, oh,
Yeah,
let me get home after bagging my groceries and find actual flaws in these RFCs. And yeah, that's next level thinking
yeah.
right
All
there.
the
That's really
all the
cool.
cool bugs, man. Nobody finds the cool bugs fuzzing. You just
Yeah.
it's that big brain. You just read it and be like, ah.
Yeah, and then to put the cherry on top of the it's never too late to start. So I'm not gonna mention names, but someone reached out to me, and you know who you are, about how they are like 10 years away from retirement. And they hit me up and they're like, is it too late for me to start? And my first thing came to my mind was like, I've been in the field for like 7.5 years now, and I made a pretty good career in that 7.5 years. And I'm like, if you have 10 years of retirement, like you can get further than where I am right now if
Yeah,
you put in the work. Like you can get a lot accomplished in that more amount of time. And like if you're in your mid 50s, like you can still have a great career. And I made the argument like, those 10 years are going to go by no matter what. Like if you're in a job that you hate and you're sitting on the sidelines and you're watching people do the job that you think you'll enjoy, well then you're going to have regrets at the end of your life. So
yeah. I mean,
it's
and that's the
definitely
thing
never too
is,
late to start.
you got to do something, right? Like if you're not retired yet, you're gonna be doing something. So you might as well be doing something that makes you not want to beat yourself with a brick. you know?
Yeah, great advice there. So moving back into our main discussion, so the one of the things that actually the thing that prompted me to bring on a show was the Tribe of Hackers Red Team, great book series by the way. One of the things you said on your entries, you said always speak to the threat model. And I'm curious if you could give an example of when that advice changed your client's mentality when you spoke to the threat model. Can you give like a concrete example of that?
So many. I would say most of my offensive security career has been spent explaining to people why they don't actually need what they think they need in terms of anything, in terms of information, in terms of engagement. It's not so much now. I think there's been a little bit of shift, but also a little bit of elevation in terms of the common knowledge within the corporate risk space of like what a pen test actually is versus what a red team actually is. So I think it's a little bit different, but it was so common back in the day where everybody, oh, like red teams were new. It was like, oh man, like physically inclusive testing, yeah. Oh, red team, yeah. Oh, we need a red team. No, dude, you don't need a red team. No, no. Someday, yes, you will probably need a red team, but let's make sure admin doesn't work on everything first, okay? Like you need some people to sit in a conference room for 2 weeks and bang on stuff and hand you a list of fix-it tickets, and then you need to build a program that can maintain those fixes for a while, then we can talk about a red team, right? But yeah, I'd say basically every context is always just either I'd say the industry as a whole has moved from leaders or stakeholders within the org being really convinced of what they need from an offensive security perspective and being very objectively wrong. And having to spend most of your time kind of walking them back from like, no, 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 you don't need that, right? To I think now a lot of it is people know that people are a little bit better about knowing the kind of advice that they need now and not knowing how to get it, or not realizing that a lot of times it's like, hey, oh, I can go give you a bag of bugs, but if you don't have the org ready to handle those bugs, I'm actually doing you a disservice, right? So maybe it's not even time to focus on offense. I know you've got your compliance and stuff, but like maybe you should focus a little bit more on like building a detection program, building an incident response program. I mean, I can think of one client who I had relatively recently on a contract where it was big client, like big, 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 only client of their industry for the government that they're in. It's like a state owned company. They basically wanted us to go after silver bullety stuff for threat as opposed to fraud, and it kind of turned into a little bit of an intel game where we were like, hey, like these people are probably the accounts that you should watch because all the stuff that's hitting you is coming out of these handful of fraud groups, and it's mostly all resales from like these two or three dudes who have horrible tradecraft because most people aren't, like in a lot of cases online fraud is actually not illegal. Like you can sue them if you can find them or they're in a country that you can get to, but most of the time it's actually not criminally illegal, which is why people do it, because it's like, why would I pop a shell and risk getting straight up drone striked depending on the particulars of the attack when I can just like mob you with stolen Facebook marketplace credentials, like, and then if you catch me, you just ban my account. Like, why? Of course I'm going to do that, right? And yeah, they got real upset with us. They were very like, "Oh, you're not, you didn't give us what we want. You didn't add to our program. You didn't do this, that, and the other." And we told them in the readouts, we're like, look, you're getting ripped off right now, right? And this is cute till it's not. And at some point, it's going to get very public, and you're going to go from getting a little ripped off to getting a lot of ripped off all at once. And by then, it's too late because you haven't built the infrastructure to respond in time. And now they actually are. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to say the shop, but like, they are having problems right now where their fraud response, the technical arm of their ability to respond to the type of fraud that they had us look at is so atrophied that now it's turning into a threat response problem that is to some degree going to require some rip and replace. Like they have some serious, like in some cases, like threat to life stuff like going on, and so the that tiny mole is now a very big cancer.
You kind of work like the full spectrum from adversary engagements, threat intel, instant response, and now product and platform security at large companies. What would you say is like the one skill or habit that actually travels well across all those different roles?
I mean, I would say it's a meta skill. It's just know what you're talking about. And when I say that, I don't mean it in like I say I know what you're talking about, and that just sounds kind of like a it sounds like a Joe Rogan-y thing to say. Like, it's not. I don't just mean be arrogant or be whatever, but I mean don't be afraid to not know things, but be very clear be with yourself between things that are objectively true that you are aware of versus things that you feel are true because of your expertise. And it's okay to argue for these things, right? But knowing the difference is kind of I mean, and that seems very like kind of meta and kind of like, yeah, dude, just be a grown up. Like, why would I need to be told that? But like, man, I've been in situations where the management, like, okay, here's a great example. I was in a situation where I was, internal doing blue teamy stuff, and I had a stakeholder come to me, and this ended up reoccurring over like a few years. Like, they kept coming back to me because they didn't get the answer they wanted. Where they had a reason, they had a significant business reason where at certain times of the year they would have to process a whole bunch of PDFs, right? So we'd get a bunch, like a few thousand PDFs from org thing, right? And we'd have to process them in a way that involved humans editing them, right? And then rebroadcast those PDFs to what would downstream eventually be the public. And the concern was if bad bits, if malware, if something, if it, if negative sticky gets seen in anything that we ship, even if it's not our fault because we didn't make it, socially we will be held responsible, and that has market impact because the people who we're shipping the documents to can just take their business somewhere else, right? And so leadership had decided that the way to solve this problem was to build a file scanner. Basically, they wanted to build a catch all, you know put the things in and it'll tell you if anything is bad there, full stop, right? And I kept having to have this conversation with this person where I said, look, thank you for explaining the problem. You don't actually need a file scanner because knowing that it's bad won't fix the problem. You're just going to get a bag of alerts and then you're going to have to go build a process for fixing it. Also, that's not possible. You can get close, you'll get stuff, but solving for 100% of bad in a PDF is like an NP hard problem because of the way that the structure of the file type is set up. And it wasn't just PDFs. There was a few other files, but they all had this problem. And so I told him, I was like, but the fun thing is that this is actually a super easy solution. You don't need a file scanner, you just need a file cleaner. Basically, Image Magic and then a couple other tools that would give some things away, so I won't say them. But basically, like, there are 3 Linux commands that you can put together that'll solve this problem. So you can just run it in a rapidly destructible container, and there you go. We just literally build a big for loop that when you get these big vats of software of documents in, you just run them all through the cleaner, and the ones that don't parse may or may not be bad, but you just throw those out, right? And then anything that goes through it, you've authoritatively decided how you want to structure the file, and so it works. And the threat model here is very similar to like what Chrome did with PDFs, where when you look at a PDF in Chrome, Chrome has a subset inside the code in Chromium where the rendering agent just turns your PDF into an image. It basically just it's like Google implemented image magic under the hood, right? And so yeah, I mean they have their issues, but they run that inside a memory bubble, right? And it significantly removed the threat of well when I'm looking at the PDF, what if the renderer messes with me? Well, it won't because you're looking at an image. Same tactic. And they came back to me with, well, I'm not convinced, right? Not convinced that my solution won't work, but they're not convinced that building a scanner isn't isn't possible, right? And I try to tell them like, look, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, right? But you're giving me an opinion and I'm responding to you with a fact. Like, it's not my opinion that this is not possible. It's math. It's math. Like, I understand you may not know the math, and I'm not trying to make a big deal out of the fact that you know the math. This is my job. I get paid to know the math. You don't get paid to know the math. It's fine, right? But please understand what I'm telling you. Like, the earth is not flat, right? It's not subjective, okay? Like, you don't have to do it my way, but your way will not work. Like, it will not work. It was like 2.5 years of going back and forth with this guy where he would like, oh, what about a catapult? Wait, remember this project? Let's try to pull this project off the shelves. I'm like, oh, bro. um, but in the end, they did end up doing it my way. And when everything came to light, they ended up saving significant amounts of money because they were the way they were going to do when they couldn't get me to build them the scanner, they were going to go buy one basically. And I mean, they were going to pay just out the nose for this to the degree that it would have had a significant business impact and almost made like chunks of the workflow not even worth it. And so, yeah, like in that, it just knowing the difference and being consistent and being persistent just paid off. And I would say, yeah, that's the thing that'll save you is just don't worry about being don't worry about speculating and being wrong. Just worry about knowing the difference between when you're speculating and when you're speaking on things you know, and just never move off that island, man. Just like, nope. 2 plus 2 is 4. You know?
Yeah, well, that's a great story. That's a great analogy. I like that a lot. The first thing I thought of was imposter syndrome. We're pretty sure like we know we're right, but like do we know for sure that we're right? Like how do
It's
you
a
deal with
good
that?
it's a good thought exercise because you can't have imposter syndrome about facts. Like even if it's real scary, right? If you're surrounded by people pointing weapons at you, telling you the earth is flat, it's never going to make the earth flat ever.
Mm,
And so I'd say that's how you use it to challenge the fear, right? Even if everything that you're being tasked to communicate is 90% speculation, as long as you can know the difference between what you're speculating on and what you're not speculating on, like hold on to the thing that you're not speculating and just let that guide you through your fear and through your anxiety, and eventually that will guide you through the imposter syndrome. In fact, and I find this in most shops, like I mean, in my story, it was very one on one, and there was some resistance. But I had some season in my career. I was also, you know, considered some minor degree of leader. You know, I was expected to kind of lead efforts, right? So like friction was implied in the role. But I would say that that's actually not the majority of my experience. The majority of my experience is that as long as I say, like, these are the facts, now let me tell you what my opinions are based on my expertise, that sometimes people that know things that you don't will actually help you. They'll actually fill in like, "Hey, you didn't say these other 3 facts," or, "Hey, you presented this like this is subjective, but actually that's a fact. Here, let me go pull the paper, or let me go show you this research." Like, "No, no, that's actually a known thing," right? They'll help you build this mountain. And it also builds this if you learn how to communicate that in a way that's not adversarial and you get used to that, it also kind of changes the vibe of the conversation where it's like it changes from who's right and becomes more of a no, we're all building the airplane together. And so these are the facts that I can offer, right? But that need to be part of the solution. And then it builds a pattern. So other people will join the conversation and say, "Oh yeah, well, I'm 90% speculating on all the stuff that you asked me for, even though I'm relatively confident about it. But these are the 3 things that I know. And one of those things is something you didn't know." And it's like, cool. Now our plane has 5 facts. And a minute ago it had 4. Right. And it just kind of organically builds this, like, by the time you're done, it's like, oh, wow. Like, between all of us, we're like 90% sure on this solution. And the last 10% is the collective speculation of all these people in this room who we know all have value because they've all communicated at least one fact that is high cohesion.
that is a golden nugget. That is, thank you so much for sharing that. Like we can argue the solution to the problem as long as we are working together to run the play that wins the Super Bowl. You work together as a team. It's okay to have different opinions and different solutions to the problem, but as long as you're trying to win the game, it's you're just really talking about like what play do you run to win the game.
The way I like to phrase it is all of us want our stock to go up, right? Like,
Yeah,
never mind who's getting what salary or different comps. Like, we're all getting shares, and we all want those to go up, right? And if we want those to go up, we should be right.
yeah.
So, like, this little, like, 10-second little ego boost that ain't gonna pay my bills in 5 years. Like, yeah.
Great. That's a solid point. So, Carl, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I'm going to ask you the final question. Do you have any additional cybersecurity hot takes or hidden wisdom you'd like to share?
I got one really spicy thing, and I'm kind of scared. This is gonna be spicy. It's gonna be spicy.
I love spicy.
Oh man. Oh, I'm about to get canceled. I think we as an industry should maybe theorize about what it's going to look like for the first time since InfoSec has boomed into InfoSec, out of quote unquote hacker culture. I think there's a very real chance that in the immediate future, like within the next year to 3 years, that the industry's growth starts to slow down, maybe even starts to stop. Maybe maybe even starts to roll back a little bit. Now, I'm not saying it's all going to go away. I'm not like doom and glooming, but I'm saying I think this is going to sound political, but I'm not trying to be political. I'm just taking the state of the world and applying it to what we do and saying this is what my crystal ball says, right? America, very specifically, the West slightly more broadly, except Europe's pretty good at this to some degree because they have like, GDPR and stuff like that. Usually the consumer marketplace experience dictates the line between security and business friction, right? People want a frictionless UI, but they also don't like getting ripped off. They also don't like having their data stolen, right? And as technology has become more ubiquitous in society, I think we've moved in the last couple, 15 years from a world where, yeah, you can be mad that like this company lost your data, but what are you going to do? Go use a competing product? There aren't any. To now, there's significant saturation across technological platforms. Like people will take their ball and go home. They will use a competitor because they don't like getting emails about data breaches, right? They don't like having their credentials lost. They don't like they experience like, oh yeah, these guys got breached, and then that later on in that week, all of a sudden my spam calls went up like a lot, and now I'm getting like way more spam calls than I used to. Like people are feeling it, right? Like people are starting to intuitively kind of grasp a little bit more what's going on in cyberspace, and I think that has been the line of, well, we need to make sure we don't get breached because it's a problem, right? Like it helps the org recognize a problem. I think that's kind of going away a little bit, and I'll illustrate it in an example. I feel like it's an open secret, right? That in Apple's not the most recent, but a few times ago groups of layoffs, right? They got rid of basically their entire threat intelligence team. They basically just decided we don't care about threat intelligence. Very rough estimate, right? Let's call it 100 people who are probably all making six figures doing threat intelligence. That's, call it $1 million a year. Does it make financial sense to keep a threat intelligence program such that people keep using your phones or iCloud versus like, oh, if your intelligence sector gets too weak, you can't go chase the people responsible for the fappening, as like a random example, right? Does it make sense to pay the money to have that capability as an organization versus does it make more sense to just buy Trump a golden iPhone, and if the fappening 2.0 happens tomorrow, that the sirens aren't coming for us because we already bent the knee and kissed the ring? So our customers will be mad, but we won't have to worry about litigation, and since our ecosystem is so locked in, and we can afford not to care. I'm not commenting on the ethics of that or the morality of it or any of that. I'm saying strictly financially, from a tactical perspective, it is a bad business decision to bother to do security past whatever it costs you to make the gold iPhone at that point. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know if that's indicative of the whole rest of the industry, but I think that's the times we live in. And so I think we as an industry should kind of decide how we collectively react to that. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's wild times, but that's just kind of how I see it.
Well, thank you for that perspective. That was a doozy for sure. I really like that. It was a little spicy, and I think you make some very valid points. And I think there's a lot of truth what you're saying there. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and the final wisdom is the final wisdom. I have like 5 follow-up questions, but till the next time, that we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it there. That was good, Carl. Thank you so much for hopping on the show. Where can the audience get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
I do have an X account. I rarely use it. It's VYRUS001. I'm also on Blue Sky at vyrus.bsky.com, I think, whatever that is. I'm on Mastodon. I can't remember if that's VYRUS or VYRUS001, but it's at a sub instance called hackers.town. And then, yeah, I float around on Slack and Discord and stuff. I guess probably the most public of the discords that I'm in is probably the Veiled Discord. So yeah, if you slide into the Valen Discord, I'm skulking around there.
Great. And audience, best place to reach me is just drop a YouTube comment, ask your questions, I will reply, and maybe even feature on one of my Q&A episodes. Audience, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show and you're on audio, rate the show 5 stars. If you're on YouTube and you're watching on video, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hopefully I see you in the next episode. Until then, this is Kyser and Carl signing off.